Now. I did the Sikh Advocate Academy the summer after my freshman year of college, and at the end of that week, a wonderful woman, Harleen Kaur from the Bay Area, approached me and said, you know what, I want you to write a story. And it was a very long process. I'll talk a little more about it once I'm done reading. But basically what that story and many other stories turn into is this collection. Her name is Kaur. We're selling them in the back. I'm going to read my story as well as Dr. Sangeeta. She's going to read hers. But if you'd like to read these two and many other stories, they're in the back. You can buy them from Megan and Manbir. So with that, moving forward, quote, "Any life is made up of a single moment, the moment in which a man finds out, once and for all, who he truly is." End quote. Jorge Luis Borges. We all have that one moment. Sometimes it comes through a short interaction with a stranger. Other times it is an event that we immediately know will change the direction of our lives. Either way, we never know until later how much the impact that moment had. Looking back, a lot of little things have had an impact on me. Going to a Sikh camp for the first time, moving from Wisconsin to Michigan, receiving Amrit, the initiation ceremony into the Sikh faith, graduating from high school, and coming to the University of Michigan. And yet, none of these sparked my big realization or my discovery of my inner self. For me, that moment came in the form of a shooting. August 5th, 2012. It was a relatively normal, albeit busy summer day. The Gurdwara in Plymouth, Michigan was wrapping up a weekend of hosting an international speech competition for Sikh youth. I was a volunteer and I was enjoying the end of a fun, Sikh-filled weekend. The Gurdwara was packed with more than 700 people as the Sangha started to trickle in and attempt to find room amongst visitors from all over the world. After the award ceremony, my friends and I ducked out to go eat before the rest of the crowd. We found space in the back corner and started to eat our roti and matar paneer. We talked with our other friends, discussing what a great time we'd had that weekend and how sad we would be for the visitors to go. It was nice to see a different crowd around the Gurdwara, even if most of them were complete strangers. After we finished eating, my phone buzzed with a notification from Twitter. I glanced at it and noticed that a friend had tweeted something at me, so I opened it to read, quote, 8 to 20 people have been injured in a shooting at a Sikh temple in Wisconsin, end quote. Then another notification, quote, breaking, multiple victims reported at a shooting at Sikh temple in hashtag Oak Creek, end quote. With this one, a link was included, so I clicked on it, mindlessly reading without fully grasping what was going on. "What's up?" my friend said. There was a shooting at a Gurdwara in Wisconsin, the one I went to." "What? Are you serious?" "Sorry, I need to find my parents." Ignoring her confused, probably concerned look, I jumped up and ran into the hallway. Searching throughout the lobby, I couldn't find my parents in the crowd, so I pulled out my phone and called my mom. "Yes?" she answered. Frantically, I shouted, "Mom, where are you?" "In the main hall. Your dad and I are counting the money from donations." "Okay, I'm coming. I have to tell you something." I immediately hung up and ran to the other side of the Gurdwara, where the main hall was located. I slowed to a quick walk, and collapsed onto my knees next to my parents, who were sitting in the front pile of money with a few other Sangha members. "What happened?" my mom said, turning to look at me, her face slightly puzzled. "There's a shooter in the Oak Creek Gurdwara and people are in there and I don't know what's going on," I blurted, and then immediately started sobbing. My parents' faces changed from shock to alarm to disbelief. I remember my dad grabbed my arm and forced me to get up, and we all left to go into the hallway. As I calmed down a bit, I started to form words and tried to explain the little information I knew to my parents. As soon as my mom understood, she pulled out her phone and started calling number after number from her phone book. I wish I could say the rest of the day was a blur and move on, but the reality is I still remember every excruciating detail. I remember my mom crying as she talked to our friends, closer than any family back in Wisconsin. I remember my dad looking out the window, completely silent. I remember locating my younger brother in the lobby of the Gurdwara, rushing home and spending the rest of the day watching CNN while our phone ran off the hook. I remember how people called, pestering for information without asking how I was doing, even though my sobs were audible through the phone. I remember praying that I wouldn't recognize any of the deceased, even though this was asking for a miracle. The day went by painfully slowly as we waited for any news. When we received a list of the 6 victims, one stood out to me, Satwan Singh Kalika. I immediately remembered a single moment, as if it had been pre-recorded video, paused and ready to play at any time. I started to learn classical Indian music and kirtan, the singing of Sikh hymns, at the age of 7, and quickly became attached. I love the sound that my voice made as it left my throat, the thrill I received every time I touched the cool, smooth keys of a vajra, and the way my heart started to beat with the rhythm of the accompanying tabla. As with any mode of art, though, there's always a bit of hesitation before sharing your talent with others, whether it is a fear of judgment or failure. Most people do not jump at the chance to perform for the first time. Yet, for each musician, there is something or someone that keeps them going. For me, it was the encouragement of an uncle from my Gurdwara, Harleen Kaur. As the years went on, I made sure to prepare a shabad for every Sunday at the Gurdwara. Without fail, as soon as I entered the main hall, Sadhvant uncle would grab my arm and take me to the stage to do kirtan. My mom tells me that he and his wife always had the same conversation. They argued about how his speeches would embarrass me, and that continually telling the other children to learn from my example would do no good. His response was the same every time. If we don't recognize our kids, then who will? The rest of that day and the following weeks and months, I went through a full spectrum of emotions. At first, I was in complete shock. The fact that something like this could happen in my childhood safe haven was beyond my worst nightmares. Other times, I was furious, especially when others tried to explain to me that they understood what I was going through, that they were Sikhs just like me, and that this could have been their Gurdwara. In fact, I realized that it was the people in a Gurdwara, not the building, that made it important. I never actually attended the physical Gurdwara that the Oak Creek shooting occurred in, as it was built when I moved away to Michigan. However, it was the same community that I had grown up with in the Milwaukee location. The people, my Sangha, they were my Gurdwara. They were my pillars and my foundation, and when they were violated, it shook me from the core. I felt hopeless, and that night, my family struggled to finish our prayers because even Vaheguru, our Creator, could not comfort us. That day, we had seen a new world. Those next few days were easily some of the most influential in my life. I heard stories from my brother, my dad, and other Sikh men of strangers approaching them and offering their condolences. Sometimes it was just a handshake, other times a hug, before the two strangers parted ways, each a little more at peace. Yet, these experiences never happened to me. Well, I'm a Sikh, why doesn't anyone talk to me? That's when it hit me. I didn't look like a Sikh. I'd spent years trying to explain to my friends and community members that a turban was the most visible identifier of a Sikh. So how could I explain others to identifying as a Sikh when I wasn't accepting the Sikh identity? The next couple of days, I continued to contemplate these thoughts, particularly when my family returned to Oak Creek the following weekend. As I heard more details of that horrid Sunday morning from my uncles and aunties, and sat in the Sangha the week after, I was completely broken. I listened to the Paisa read Slok Mahla Nawa, one of the last prayers in Guru Granth Sahib, but my mind drifted in and out throughout the program. I suddenly snapped into focus at the end of the program when I heard the following. People become anxious when something unexpected happens. This is the way of the world, O Nanak. Nothing is stable or permanent. Whatever has been created shall be destroyed. Everyone shall perish, today or tomorrow. O Nanak, sing the glorious praises of the Lord, and give up all other entanglements. Immediately, I was struck by the message that Vaheguru had been trying to send me. Nothing is permanent. The brutality and suddenness of the shooting had made me realize the truth behind those fairly obvious words. My son